So, Onimusha's back. Like a gift descended from a clear blue sky, illuminated by Amaterasu's light, Capcom has announced a brand new Onimusha game, the 5th main series title, Way of the Sword. And it looks both stylish and dark as hell. The Onimusha horror vibe is back in full force. But that's not all. A remastered port of my favorite game in the series, Onimusha 2, is also on its way. I'll drink to that. With my love for Onimusha Warlords clearly documented, you can probably imagine how happy I am now that my favorite Resident Evil adjacent samurai adventure series is back. It's been months since the initial announcement, but I'm still a little shaken up by it. Did that actually happen? Is this even real right now? Brand new game aside, I mean it when I say Onimusha 2 is my favorite Onimusha, and also probably one of my favorite PS2 games overall. Today you'll learn exactly why that is. The idea that it's coming back at all is great, but what's even better is I've actually played the remastered port multiple times already. Jealous? Well, I'll be talking about that a lot later. Thank you so much, Capcom, for sponsoring this video. Onimusha 1 and 2 are interesting games in that they were literally developed at the same time. Warlords and Samurai's Destiny, if you can believe it, started off on the PS1. When Capcom staff saw what the PS2 was capable of, the shift in platform was immediate and obvious. With the switch to PS2, the vision and roadmap for developing the Onimusha series became quite clear. With both teams relatively on the same page, thematic cohesion between both stories and their respective tones were set in stone. Where Onimusha 1 followed Resident Evil in a lot of ways, most notably in the horror atmosphere department, Onimusha 2 would develop out of that vibe, showing us what life in this fantasized Sengoku world would look like after the first game's massive tragedy took place. The world continues and may even get brighter as new heroes rise to the challenge of Nobunaga's infamous ambition. Making his directorial debut, Capcom dev Motohide Eshiro would lead the charge for Samurai's Destiny. Thanks to Capcom, I actually got to visit their office and speak to Eshiro-san personally. I actually learned a lot about the game while watching him play. By the way, did you know Capcom actually got him back to direct the remaster? Is that not like the coolest thing ever? It's incredibly rare when this happens, and after spending a lot of time with this updated version, I think this kind of thing should happen with every modern port. Because the Onimusha 2 remaster is really, really good. We'll get into that later. This game's soundtrack was composed by actual musician Taro Iwashiro, and fun fact, you can actually run into him in Oni 2's town sections. Here he is, right here. Like the first game, Onimusha 2's protagonist, the legendary samurai, Jubei Yagyu, is also portrayed by a famous Japanese actor. This time it was Yusaku Matsuda. Around the time of Onimusha 3's release, funnily enough, is when I realized that Game 1 and 2's protagonists were actually based on real actors. I was and still am a massive fan of French action legend Jean Reno, and seeing him alongside the name Takeshi Kaneshiro obviously piqued my interest. I was like, who's this Kaneshiro character? You know that odd but fantastic feeling you get when you're absolutely obsessed with a fictional character, and then the startling realization that a human being actually played said obsessed character sets in? Well, looking up the names of these Japanese legends was really fun, but also kind of bittersweet in Oni 2's case. Yusaku Matsuda actually passed away in the year 1989. He was a big 70s and 80s movie star, and Capcom clearly wanted to follow Game 1's lead with a bit of star power. But they also had a bit of a conundrum on their hands, seeing as they'd basically be resurrecting an actor for their game. The first attempt at recreating Matsuda wasn't totally accurate, so director Eshiro recalls Matsuda's wife, Miyuki, coming to the studio and working alongside them to get her husband's likeness just right. That story was so cute that I just had to tell it. Matsuda's likeness for Jubei made the character stand out even more, in my opinion. He just had the perfect hero look, and I'm really glad that Capcom went the distance to immortalize him like this. Speaking of artists taken before their time, Resident Evil legend Nobuo Sugimura would once again return to write the narrative of Samurai's destiny. Of course, taking inspiration from a lot of real-life myths and legends told all throughout Japan's history. With Onimusha 2 being one of the last relatively modern, fixed-camera, pre-rendered video games on PlayStation 2, Capcom was able to really use the hardware to produce one of the best-looking games on the console. Calling the backgrounds pre-rendered doesn't really do them justice, seeing as every single environment has moving elements. Calling them FMVs is a lot more accurate. One location that always comes to mind is the rain-soaked flowing river at the start of the game. According to Eshiro-san, the team recorded footage of a real river to reproduce this in-game effect, and it looks almost dreamlike in motion. As you'll see with the rest of the video, Oni 2 is packed with breathtaking sights like this one. Onimusha 2 came out 1 year after the first game, and as a diehard fan of that first game, getting to play a sequel to that very unique title that fast, well, it was a great day. So without further ado, I think it's time for us to cut deep into the ultimate samurai adventure game, Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny. Onimusha 2 begins 10 years after the fall of Inabayama Keep. Lord Oda Nobunaga, still the reigning tyrant that we left him as, has his sights on another town he's about to crush underfoot. Yagyu village never saw their destruction coming. The village, belonging to the Yagyu samurai clan, fights back, but it isn't enough. In perhaps his most visually menacing incarnation to date, the snake, Nobunaga has taken another piece of Japan. On a dark and stormy night, a lone samurai, chief of the Yagyu village, Jubei, gets word that his town is under siege. Desperately taking off, he arrives at his destroyed home. Jubei's clan, his friends, everything he ever knew is gone.
Who did this?
Jubei! Jubei!
A mysterious and admittedly creepy voice calls out to our hero. Exploring his ransacked town, we stumble into a survivor, an older man warning Jubei of the danger that surrounds him. A spear cuts through the man before he can say anything else. Seemingly normal soldiers appear before our crestfallen lead. Jubei, fearlessly facing the men, cuts them down to size. As he delves deeper, we discover this ruined town crawling with these soldiers. An air of demonic energy can be felt while fighting these heartless drones. In the town's pond, a secret cave opens to us. Hopping across the water, we find ourselves face to face with the voice that was calling out to us.
What? A demon woman? You're behind this.
The one responsible for burning down Yagyu village is Nobunaga Oda.
What?
This friendly Oni woman is Takajo. She explains that the destruction of hers and Jubei's village was committed by none other than the reigning warlord Oda Nobunaga. The spectral woman awakens a dormant power in Jubei. A magical symbol appears on his hand, granting him the power to absorb demon souls. Historically, to absorb souls, one must be in possession of an Oni gauntlet. To get one of those, you'd have to be blessed by the otherworldly ogres themselves. Jubei just having this ability makes him a true Onimusha. The woman reveals that humanity has been secretly protected by 5 magic orbs: charity, faith, honesty, respect, and strength. According to the woman, finding these orbs is the key to slaying Nobunaga once and for all. With charity in hand, the woman reveals her true identity to Jubei.
You can do it, my son.
Jubei is part human, part Oni. Acquiring his first supernatural weapon, the lightning blade Buraito, Jubei heads to the newly found mining town, Imasho. As the rain clears, the almighty sun shines down on Jubei like the sheen of freshly picked gold. This story, on its surface, is brighter and less oppressive than our previous Oni tale, but as the old saying goes, the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows. Immediately we're met with a mystery woman clad in Western armor. Dealing with a pack of ruffians, Jubei takes note of the orb hanging from her necklace. A mysterious town, a demon army knocking at its doors, and a shady woman beckon us. As we begin, Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny. Compared to Samanosuke, Jubei is a master swordsman. Samanosuke was pure samurai soldier. His name was literally a military rank, translating to Vice Commander of the Left Cavalry Division. When you play Onimusha 1, you feel like you're controlling a rough and tumble soldier. His name, rank, and goal of saving his princess were all reflected in his combat style. His attacks came out with trained precision, and the way he would use magically infused sword strikes was brutal. In his lightning attack, you can tell he's not letting up until whatever he's wailing on is dead. Looking at Jubei in close quarters battle, everything from his basic strikes, one-shot isen, and magic attacks all have a level of style not present in Samanosuke's swordsmanship. He just had to flip on him, didn't he? Everything Jubei does in combat feels like he's styling on his enemies. Even getting new Oni weapons sees Jubei play around with them in flashy animations, previewing what he's capable of doing with these tools of destruction. Samanosuke getting a new weapon is an acknowledgement of more demon killing. The change in tone from horror-fueled desperation to a lighter action-adventure romp is also present in the game's combat. It's a wonderful way to separate the two characters' dispositions to the threats that surround them. Samurai's Destiny still plays the same way as Warlords, but everything feels tighter, more responsive, and more fun. Jubei's tank-controlled movement is fast. He rotates and quick turns on a dime. His attacks all come out quicker. The new upgradable armor system makes him feel like a tank at level 3. The amount of damage you can take supports the lessened emphasis on the first game's oppressive vibe. This is purely an action game, and it wants you to know it. The title's level design has classic Resident Evil flair, like backtracking and key finding, but to a much lesser degree. The first game's orb doors have been left in the past as well. Almost every issue I had with Onimusha 1's combat is remedied in Samurai's Destiny. Jubei gets 4 elemental weapons, more combos for each of those weapons, a new powerful soul charge ability, and the most phenomenal, Onimusha mode. The elemental weapons are the Lightning Sword and Wind Lance from the first game, and the all-new Ice Spear and Earth Hammer. Each have a basic combo, but also come equipped with a Street Fighter-style up-down input attack that can easily chain in and out of the basic combo. Each weapon has a unique 3-tiered soul charge, so holding R1 on your PlayStation 2 controller really tightly feeds energy into the weapon. Each soul charge level sees Jubei execute a different attack. The level 2 and 3 attacks even have additional follow-up hits with carefully timed button presses. You can even use soul charge to squeeze out what little magic remains in your gauge to execute the weapon's elemental attack. It's like a last resort magic use during really dicey battles. Also, whatever soul charge level you reach while doing this will actually fire off that weapon's magic attack level. So going all the way for the risky charge will actually result in a pretty big damage payout should you decide to live your life on the razor's edge. Like Samanosuke, Jubei can also Isen, which, if you're not familiar, is the critical hit single strike kill move. In the first game, it was difficult to perform, but in Oni 2, it is a lot easier, if you know its secret. So, funny story, when I recorded my first video replay, much like Oni 1, I struggled to do the Isen. It was rough trying to get this strike to come out, leading to many failed attempts and even death. It just so happened that I was about to visit Capcom the day after recording this full first video replay. Here is where I would witness director Eshiro play the game firsthand in front of me. This may or may not come as a surprise to you, but this legend hit the critical on every enemy that stood before him. It was captivating watching him work. But something that I noticed about his playstyle piqued my curiosity. Eshiro-san did not stop moving at any point during battles. He was zigzagging around enemies, grouping them up, and then taking them all out with one strike. With my previous Resident Evil parry dodge knowledge, I wondered, does staying on the move make critical hits easier? After extensive testing in both Oni 2 Original and Remaster, I have the answer. And it's a resounding yes. Remaining on the move opens up the window of Isen and parry a little bit wider. Moving right as you press the attack button makes it a lot easier to one-shot basically all enemies. What shocked me even further was trying this trick out in Onimusha 1 and finding that it also worked there. Don't get me wrong, it still requires a lot of effort to learn enemy animations and to have the skill to know when to sidestep, but it is a lot easier this way. I am so glad that not only did I learn this from watching the literal master of Onimusha 2, but it was also amazing knowing that he still has such an extensive knowledge of his own game. It was inspiring to see. By the way, don't feel bad if you're having trouble with the Isen. Jubei's normals, magic, and charged attacks all look super cool, so regularly playing the game and not being a master of the sword is still very viable and extremely fun. With all of that great stuff aside, in the original PS2 version, one minor complaint I still have with Onimusha gameplay overall is its unfortunate lock-on system. So if you're not great at one-shotting everything, you're still left having to fight like normal. Onimusha 2 has even more enemies on screen, and with that comes some rather erratic lock-on behavior. The same Onimusha 1 issue, where enemies inevitably cross past each other, will totally mess up Jubei's focus. Repressing lock-on or flicking the targeting stick barely remedies the issue. When you're surrounded, you may even get stun-locked into a desperate situation. Thankfully, this game has more screen-clearing means if this gets to be too much. And like I explained earlier, you can always practice Isen. There is another actual remedy to the lock-on issue that you will undeniably experience that we'll talk about a little later. I'm sure you can imagine what that might be. A new combat ability you can kick ass with is Onimusha mode. This very demonic-looking state might bring some thoughts to mind for any hardcore Capcom fans paying attention. So yeah, Jubei is half human, half Oni, essentially making this his devil trigger. Onimusha mode is extremely powerful, yet lasts mere seconds. You can do all of your melee combos in this state, but the real standout is the absolutely devastating tracking laser beams fired from Jubei's hand. Lock-on ain't really an issue when you can just mind blast everything to death. The actual issue, again, a small but unfortunate one, is OM's activation. Collecting rare purple souls automatically pops OM. In the PS2 version, it is impossible to store this powerful form. You may potentially waste this mode more times than not. The solution offered in the vanilla version of the game is the speed at which these purple souls travel. This makes it harder to absorb these powerful souls, but it also feels a bit cheap. In situations where you'd need OM most, boss fights, for example, completely rely on you randomly getting these souls to spawn in, which isn't guaranteed. I've gone many playthroughs where I would have loved to pop this powerful state on the edge of life and death, but it never arrived, sadly. To effectively use Onimusha mode, you have to pay close attention, which obviously isn't a problem for someone who's played the game a million times, but for a newcomer, this might spell disaster, popping OM and wasting it right before a difficult boss fight. Again, there is another solution to this small issue that we'll talk about in 1 minute. Something undeniably great about Oni 2 is the amount and variety of Genma you'll be slashing through. Outside of maybe 4 enemies that return from Onimusha 1, the gambit of Genma here are all new. The old zombified foot soldiers of Nobunaga's battalion are now possessed human samurai. These revenants, now blending into society, infiltrate the various settlements of feudal Japan. If you rewatch the intro to Warlords, upon resurrection, you can actually see these human Genma with their lord marching forward. It's like because that game took place in an isolated castle town was when Nobunaga was a little more comfortable unleashing the real monsters to deal with his campaign against Inabayama Keep. In Onimusha 2, the deeper underground you delve, the more monstrous, reptilian, and insectoid the threats become. The title does a great job at mixing smaller and larger creatures into battles. Combat encounters are incredibly well paced, oftentimes having you fight a group of a certain type of enemy, getting you used to their presence in battle, then mixing them in with other monster types. When the lock-on is behaving and you've got your parries down, you'll be gracefully cutting through different varieties of ghoul and feeling fantastic about it. The boss fights are also very well designed. I guess I should say smartly designed, seeing as you fight 2 of them 3 separate times. This isn't a bad thing, as both of these bosses have entirely different ways of fighting each time you encounter them. The consistent Gingham Fats, I'm not even lying, that's his real name, comes back each time with new tricks for Jubei. There's also Juju Dorma.
Do you like what you see?
Again, I'm not making these names up. She's actually so stylish. She hits Jubei in the face with her $10,000 Prada bag. It's hilarious. But one of the bosses happens to be one of the most badass rival characters in gaming history.
Thank you for staying.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. My name is Gogandantess, the greatest swordsman of all demons.
What's wrong with you? Who talks like that?
But we'll talk about him in great detail a lot later. In a lot of media analysis, a very common thing you might hear about video games is that the world you inhabit is as much a character as the characters themselves. Well, I think Onimusha 2's Town of Imasho might fit that descriptor better than most other games. Unlike the first title, Oni 2 features an actual hub that you return throughout the game. This newly established gold mining town is home to many interesting characters.
He's dead! I saw it first! What are you doing? Get away!
Walking its streets are all sorts with their own stories. Each NPC can have up to 3 or even 6 lines of dialogue. Talking to these fair-weathered folk might unearth interesting info about the town itself. You may even get tangible items from them, and some citizens might even affect the story and how it plays out. Because this game uses pre-rendered backgrounds, the town is able to show many NPCs on screen at once, making the streets feel busy. Taking the trail to the nearby gold mine, you're met with all kinds of danger from demonic ninja, lizard men, and Oda's Legion, of course. It's so interesting seeing how the Genma forces have this town under watch. It subtly suggests that something deeper might be going on in the gold mine.
Do you have a permit? I won't allow you to enter the mine unless you have a permit.
Like, who owns this mine anyway? Some miners are able to walk right up to the entrance, and some are kidnapped by the demons, never to be seen again. There's an ongoing mystery in the background that has a hell of a payoff by the end. Onimusha Warlords was a contained story about a tragedy in a castle town. While the stakes were high for the handful of people involved, the scale of the overall demon siege wasn't as big as it is here. It's so fun getting a healthy variety of places to visit. The aforementioned town and gold mine are just a taste of the demons' control over the land. Jubei's destroyed homestead leads to a mysterious fog-covered forest, brimming with all kinds of illusory threats. Getting to see the Genma actually exist in a variety of biomes was something I wasn't ready for back in the day. Aquatic demons fill the rivers of the lands, and only the gnarliest of classic Genma demon inhabit the deep caves. Jubei walks the path of the Oni. His story is a legendary, predestined tale. As he finds each of the orbs, they help him activate ancient technology left by his ancestors. Iron horses, robotic swordfish, and even an honest-to-God airship help him carve his path through history. By the way, I just have to throw this out there. Seeing a handsome samurai cradling a hot babe in Western armor, riding an iron horse through the Japanese countryside night is probably the most masculine thing I've ever seen. Jubei is such a sick character. I love him. As a counter, the demons have their own tricks for Jubei. The Genma ingenuity and powerful magic has advanced their own death-dealing defenses. The extreme machinery in the mines and, no joke, steampunk robots stand off against our Oni hero. Needless to say, a lot's changed in the past 10 years of Sengoku Japan. Getting back to Imasho, as Jubei enters the town bar, he meets some of the more colorful occupants.
Magoichi! Where did you take my girl? How dare you disturb our time? Together!
That woman gave me the help sign, so I had to break things up between the two of you. Get over it.
What?
Seriously. Who'd want a red bald head like you?
A red bald head? That does it! Outside now!
Magoichi and Ekei here are only 2 of the 4 actual party members and friends that Jubei can fight alongside all throughout the game. What separates Onimusha 2 from every other game in existence, the thing that makes it one of the most replayable PS2 games, is its incredibly deep friendship system. So throughout the story, you'll be finding, buying, and bestowed random objects. At first you might be thinking, why did I just pick a living frog up off the ground? Why do I have wasabi in my inventory? Why do I have an actual copy of The Art of War? Well, my friends, all of these random ass items are actually gifts for your potential besties. To call the gift-giving system fun would be an extraordinary understatement. Hundreds of dialogue lines were recorded across the 4 main characters, Magoichi, Ekei, Kotaro, and Oyu. For almost every gift in the game, there's something fun to be said. Each character has a distinct personality, and getting to know them is the key to proper gift etiquette. You'll either gain or lose invisible friendship points based on the types of gifts given. If a character likes or even loves something, they'll let you know. If you give one of your friends something they hate, they might even reject it outright.
Do I look like a garbage can to you?
Kinda. But worry not. You can also give them some suspicious white flowers to make them forget their previous interaction, giving you your friendship points back.
Huh? Oh! I'm dizzy!
Or you can even give them magic mushrooms. Director Eshiro wanted to hide the character friendship rating to make this system feel natural, and that it does. Each character will greet and interact with Jubei differently each time their trust increases. Connected to the bar where each companion's staying is a neighboring shop. This store will add to its stock every time you come back to the town after major story events. Yeah, the gold from the mine isn't just narrative, it's mechanical too. Saving up gold and buying things had me carefully considering what my digital warrior friends might like. With that in mind, showering your companions with presents isn't the only way to gain or lose their favor. You'll also randomly come across these warriors out in the field, and if you choose to fight alongside them, their trust will also increase. Leave them behind, and they may just leave you behind. Again, it makes the system feel real. Some of the gifts are only accessible through gift trading, so experimenting with each character's interests will oftentimes net you things you never thought you'd ever see in the game. Some gifts can even be combined by giving them in a specific order. At points in the game, depending on how loved Jubei is, your friends might even ask for specific items, initiating naturally integrated side quests that are totally optional. But what's truly amazing about this system is it determines who interacts with Jubei in the narrative. There are real storyline paths you can go down that feature entirely different scenarios. For example, at the start of the game, whoever you gravitate to more in that bar, be it Ekei or Magoichi, in the following scenario in the gold mine, one of these guys will help you during a big fight while the other sits on the sidelines. If you manage to thoroughly explore Imasho before ever heading into the mine, you'll come across 2 thugs talking about jumping a young boy who stole their wallet. If you follow their lead, you find out the young boy is Kotaro Fuma, a talented young ninja who you help out of a bind with these guys. Doing this unlocks him early, which then you can give gifts to, making him show up in the mines, leaving Magoichi and Ekei to continue arguing in the bar. This choice will actually lock you out of their early game story events. This system is insane, and I'm still impressed by it all these years later. I don't think there's been another action game with a system this complex. Depending on which path you take, you'll also get to play as these characters. You know how in Resident Evil adjacent games like this one, there's always a secondary character scenario? Onimusha 2 has 4 of them, and they only happen if you choose to walk certain story paths. This game lets you mix and match playable character segments, and it's like, why don't we see this much effort put into replayability for modern games? It's legit mind-blowing how deep this game's systems are, and need I remind you, this is a PS2 game that came out 20 years ago. By the way, each warrior has their own moveset and magical attacks. They don't play anything like our protagonist. If you play your cards right with everyone, you might be able to have a full playthrough with all 4 optional segments, making for the ultimate samurai journey. I'll go into specific narrative stuff in a bit, but when you finish the game, you're presented with a full timeline of the game's events and which scenes you got on your playthrough. Seeing this for the first time back in the day blew my mind and made me so unbelievably happy. As someone who's always replayed games many, many times before ever moving on to a new one, I loved the idea that the game gave me a massive list of meaningful cutscenes that I can earn in the various playthroughs I'd eventually embark on. I feel Onimusha 2 is probably one of Capcom's highest effort games that hasn't gotten the proper amount of acclaim. I mean, they made one of the coolest samurai action games ever and clipped on one of the most fleshed out borderline dating simulators on the market. You can give Magoichi a wedding ring.
Thank you. Now we are brothers.
What? That does it! Outside now!
Fine, Ekei, I'll give you the wedding ring.
You're not my type.
Damn, dude, alright, relax. I can gush about the various interesting happenings I've run into with the gift-giving system all day. But for now, I'll say getting the path where Jubei has no friends is the worst way to play and live. So please, get out there and make some friends. That brings us to the latest triumphant series release, Onimusha 2 Remastered. Let me tell you, I have played so much of this new port and have got a lot to say about it, so let's get into that right away. Firstly, I'm happy to say that all of the original voice acting and music is here in the Oni 2 Remaster. One thing I was disappointed with in the Onimusha 1 Remaster was the entirely new soundtrack. Because of issues, it had to change, so I'm glad no such drama is present with 2. I should probably mention that I've finished the remastered port about 5 times already. I tried achieving as many of the character scenarios as possible, netting around 70 to 90% for each character, and from my calculations, everything is here. I'm not sure how they've updated the pre-rendered backgrounds for previous projects, but whatever they did here looks phenomenal. I'd imagine upscaling Onimusha 2's backgrounds would be a gargantuan effort, seeing as so many of them have moving parts and particle effects to take into account. In the 50 or so hours I've spent playing this version of the game, seeing as much as humanly possible, I'd say they absolutely nailed it. The character models and textures also look fantastic, and for the first time in my life, I actually fully played this game in 16:9 aspect ratio. With previous remastered PS1 and 2 games, stretching pre-rendered backgrounds or zooming them in always looked off to me personally. Onimusha 2's remastering is great, and all of the in-game action runs at a solid 60 FPS. A lot of translation weirdness from the original PS2 version has been corrected, so memos and villager dialogue reads a bit more coherently. Some of the names of the gifts were changed to better represent what they are, so no longer are you just handing off Pandora's box to a mischievous Fuma ninja. Dumplings? I'm sorry, they're called dango. One thing that made me genuinely happy is the name of one of the locations was fixed. Later in the story, you get to visit the home base of the ogre clan, the Oni's Sacred Place, as it's named on the PS2. In the remastered version, it's called Onigashima, which in legend is the infamous Oni Island from the fairy tale Momotaro, which Oni 2 uses as inspiration for its story and characters, so makes sense, right? I'm sure back in the day, the localization team had no idea how to properly represent this to an early 2000s Western audience. I'm really glad foreign culture isn't taboo anymore, so we can actually have accurate things like this outside of Japan. In terms of gameplay, all of the small issues I've always had with Oni 2 PS2 are completely fixed. Like Neobard's previous ports, the Resident Evil-style tank controls are now on the D-pad exclusively, and more traditional analog control is obviously on the left stick. This update makes the game feel way less Resident Evil and way more Devil May Cry. I went back and forth between both styles in all of my playthroughs, and both methods felt great to me. Having that snappier analog control gets you out of binds much quicker. But for more precise inputs like the up-down motion for the combos, the D-pad movement helped out greatly. The two biggest annoyances of the PS2 version, the wacky lock-on shenanigans and Onimusha mode just popping as soon as you get it, are both remedied completely. So like Warlords Remastered, you can now switch lock-on targets way more accurately, and it works great. Onimusha mode here is now thankfully stored until you activate it, just like Devil Trigger. This change is monumental, so now whenever Gogandantess shows up, just let him have it. It adds a much-needed layer of strategy to the game's basic loop, holding onto and popping OM when you say so. It makes you as the player feel even stronger as the canon true Onimusha. Another Devil May Cry feeling adjustment is the game's on-the-fly weapon switching. So holding down L2 and pressing right on the D-pad cycles all of your melee weapons, and pressing left cycles your ranged options. The emphasis on reducing menuing is like a dream come true. I can't describe how sick it feels being in a tough boss fight and having all of your weapons immediately available to magic dump one after another. How about dealing with all those pesky archers and grounded threats without ever pressing the inventory button? It also just looks so cool seeing Jubei switch weapons with an all-new animation. Something that killed my hands replaying the PS2 version that I only noticed recently because I'm getting old, is the hard press R1 charge input. So if you guys don't know, the PS2 had pressure-sensitive buttons that did different things depending on how hard you pressed them. I really loved this idea for certain other games, but only having access to strong attacks by jamming your finger into R1 is extremely painful after a while. In Remastered, this input is simply on R2 now, so no more hurting yourself while trying to unwind at the end of the day with a fun video game. If mastering the Way of the Sword has gotten a little too easy for you and you need an increased challenge, well then, try out the new Hell mode. Like your one-shot Isen kills, Hell mode gives the enemies one-shot kills on you. So mastering the blade isn't all you're gonna need to do this time. Get good at moving those feet, baby. If you can beat this mode, I don't know, I guess you're the reincarnation of Miyamoto Musashi or something. Capcom surprise added Hell mode to Onimusha 1 Remastered, which is extremely sick and twisted of them to do, but I appreciate it. With all of the time I've spent with this remaster, playing it over and over directly after the original, I can confidently say that this is the best way to play Onimusha 2. Every rough edge in the gameplay department hasn't been sanded down, it's been refined. It looks and sounds great, and save for a few minor changes, you've got all of the unlockables, plus new stuff like a soundtrack player, and what seems like all of the production concept art, which is mind-blowing to see. Most importantly, nothing has been cut out of the story, thank the Oni gods. It's all here, and if you've never played Onimusha 2, this would be a great place to start. Well, Onimusha 1 would be the best place to start, and hey, you can actually get them together on every modern gaming platform. What a wonderful world we live in where Onimusha of all games has come back in full style. This remaster is incredibly high effort and is out on May 23rd, 2025. Check it out if you haven't, it's worth it. Alright, back to the retrospective. As a character, Jubei definitely fills the strong and quiet archetype. Earlier, when I was describing how he handles himself in combat, That style is applicable to his everyday character interaction. Jubei doesn't speak much, oftentimes letting his weapon do the talking. We don't get much out of him in the way of characterization unless you go down a certain friendship path. One thing that I loved about Samanosuke was his calming thoughtfulness in the middle of the horrible situation he was thrust into. He goes out of his way to communicate and strategize with his partner, Kaide. When they meet the young Yumemaru, Samanosuke comforts the boy with tales of his own adventures. You can tell this soldier doesn't want any of the survivors to fear him. He doesn't want them to lose faith that they can make it out alive. You see this kid visibly inspired by this man's dutiful life. When Jubei speaks, he generally tries to bypass difficult situations with sharp words that cut through the tension. That, or he's warning whatever giant monster standing in front of him of their impending doom.
I won't forgive you. Prepare yourself!
Do you think you're equal to one from the demon clan?
Not equal. Better.
I love the dichotomy between these two heroes. Samanosuke is a highly skilled and loyal soldier who is lower on the samurai totem pole, while Jubei is the head of a samurai clan. Stoicism, hierarchy, and leadership are what he knows, and he applies this straightforward thinking to almost every situation throughout the narrative. Jubei is so honor-bound that he goes out of his way to spare the normal human beings bullying his friends. When Oyu and Kotaro are in trouble, Jubei uses a technique called mineuchi, the act of striking with the back of your katana's blade as to not kill your target, even showing the camera he's doing this specific trick so no one gets the wrong idea. By the way, don't ever do this in real life. It's still an extremely deadly maneuver to pull off. You might end up just hurting yourself. Jubei has his heartfelt moments, but as the player in control of his story, you have to work for those moments. When I said the worst playthrough is the friendless playthrough, I really meant that. So many questions about our lead are just left unanswered, and that's by design. Again, you have to work for Jubei's emotional development. There's a moment in the story where Jubei's mom gets ruthlessly killed by Prada Bag here. And when you chat to your friends about this after it happens, they all console Jubei. Each of them have something meaningful to say, relating the situation to their own stories. That empathy only comes into play when these people know they can trust you, when they know they can look up to Jubei as a leader. When you really think about it, Jubei opening up to friends he stood by in combat makes the most sense for this battle-born warrior. Jubei is on a quest for revenge, and what's great about his story is that he isn't blinded by his anger. He's not making dumb mistakes that move the story forward. He's actually quite composed. As the head of the Yagyu village, he failed in protecting his people. He has no one left, but he also realizes that their deaths weren't exactly his fault. He couldn't have ever predicted that Nobunaga's forces would sack his home the second he left on business. This tragedy gives him a chance to prove how honorable he really is by avenging his people, while also helping others affected by Nobunaga's reign. We get to see Jubei's focus come into play when Magoichi and Ekei brawl it out over and over again. He stops them every time, telling them to focus on the real threat at hand. When Kotaro offers to join us, Jubei shoots the idea down initially, telling him to go home and protect his people, like he wasn't able to for his own. Jubei is a leader, and as the player, we slot into that role, filling his shoes effortlessly. Many games have since done this kind of gameplay to story hybrid, but Onimusha 2 was the first game I had ever experienced where my actions as the player so perfectly aligned with what the main character was going through in such a cool way. The first companion Jubei lays eyes on is the stoic gunman, Magoichi. Although you can venture with Magoichi as a duo, his story is closely linked to Ekei's. At first, this steely-eyed gunslinger might come off as a total too-cool-for-school outlaw. I mean, he definitely is that, but soon you might grow wary of his intentions, as he doesn't outright say who he supports in the ongoing war. Sure, he helps you out a lot if you align with him, but upon reaching the source of the demonic scourge, we run into Tokichiro Kinoshita. Yeah, that little imp from the first game, Nobunaga's right-hand man, is back. This moment raises obvious suspicion in the player as we walk in on these two discussing where Nobunaga's gold happens to be located. Tokichiro flat out accuses the gunman of aligning with the demons in exchange for riches. We know this little guy is a liar, but Magoichi doesn't really deny this. Of course, his rival Ekei shows up with divine timing to revel in Magoichi's betrayal.
I knew it! I knew there was something! I won't forgive you!
Whatever. I do what I want.
It should be noted that Magoichi is a worldly traveler and possibly a pirate, so his nonchalant attitude makes a lot of sense here. The literal next scene we get of these two is Magoichi releasing a Genma to scare Ekei. This is obviously a goofy moment, but if you take his behavior into account, you might also think Magoichi was just chilling with that demon in this storage closet. If you manage to gain Magoichi's full trust, he finally opens up, letting us know his real intentions are to destroy the Oda clan. His recon with Tokichiro has revealed that the village Azai and Saiga are the Oda clan's next vulnerable targets.
I will tell you. But only you. I'm also here to stop Nobunaga. Jubei. My mother died just after I was born. The other women in the village with children raised me as if I was one of their own. The people of this village are kind and generous to anyone. They do not deserve to be destroyed.
This moment also inadvertently mends his and Ekei's friendship.
That fool! Why does he have to act so tough?
Magoichi doing recon for the enemy side is actually accurate to the real-life Magoichis of the Iko-Iki mercenary groups back in the 1500s. Magoichis were the real informants that would likely be aware of what all sides in the conflicts were up to. If you're really great friends with this badass gunman, he even returns the favor for Jubei protecting him. We take up the rifle as our lead gets petrified in a Genma-filled cave. It's unbelievably cool seeing Magoichi clear out rooms of demons, Terminator style, with a flamethrower that's larger than him. In Magoichi's final scene, he straight up steals the kill shot on one of the final bosses.
Feel the power of my new weapon, Kunikazushi. Magoichi mentions having to leave right away to join the defense of Azai and Saiga, which is in reference to a real-life battle that took place in Ishiyama Hongenji, the fortress of the Iko-Iki. That brings us to arguably the most tragic character of the bunch, Ekei and Kikuchi, the punished warrior monk. Ekei is a Hozoin Ryu master, a master of the spear-fighting way, and grand disciple of partying. The first few interactions we get from this large personality are equal parts jovial and raunchy. Let's just say Ekei enjoys the services of the various women of the night you see around town. Getting wasted and fighting for nothing are his personal brands of self-destructive fun. In his moments of clarity, he spouts off about one day becoming a feudal lord, even if it means siding with Nobunaga. Magoichi warns Ekei and Jubei that they resemble men possessed by vengeance. He cautions that even if Ekei rises and Nobunaga falls, war and death will always follow. On his and Magoichi's path, during our mining expedition, a lowly miner catches up to the group, fearfully telling our heroes that his daughter has gone missing. Simply hearing the word daughter perks Ekei up like no one else's business. He and the man take off with the utmost haste. The first impressions aren't that great for the old monk, as he's displayed levels of scumbaggery we haven't seen up to this point in Onimusha. As we make our way through the mines, we find a secret passage that seemingly transports us to an old familiar place. Stepping out of the caves and emerging at the foot of the first game's Inabayama Castle, now renamed Gifu Castle by Nobunaga, will always be a darkly beautiful moment for me. Seeing the first game's castle 10 years later, now fully infested by Nobunaga's influence, is insane. As we explore the demon-infested building, we find that every hallway and every room is now occupied with the forces of hell. All of this combat plays out with either Magoichi or Ekei at our side. Re-exploring this place is like a trip down memory lane, but we're not the only ones suffering from deja vu. There's a baby.
Oh, Mio! Oh, my baby. My baby. No. Easy. Shh. Easy. You're safe now. This is my baby. My daughter.
What?
When the castle fell, my daughter was crying like this. I did everything I could to rescue her. But in the fire, she...
Ekei.
When she was born, I promised her. When she grew up, I would become a feudal lord and make her a princess.
When I first played this game as a kid back in the early 2000s, seeing this unabashedly confident warrior reduced to a blubbering mass of tears and regret horrified me. This moment wakes Ekei up to what his life and the world around him has become. For the majority of his story, the lonely monk fights at Jubei's side with the utmost loyalty, showing us his crippling fear of mice, and helping Jubei out of a few tricky situations. We get to know this man better and see him for the likable warrior he is at heart. So, the real-life Ekei and Koguchi was part of the Mori clan, and in the year 1582, Nobunaga's forces stormed Takamatsu Castle in Okayama. The real Ekei was sent in to negotiate a peace treaty with none other than Tokuchiro Kinoshita, or as he was known at that point in history, Hideyoshi Toyotomi. So in real life, Ekei actually sided with Nobunaga for many years, until seemingly deciding to fight against one of his successors. Oh yeah, the legendary shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu. He was inevitably sentenced to death for his betrayal. Back to the video game, at the end of Ekei's path, two outcomes are possible. One sees Ekei make a deal to become a feudal lord under the Mori clan, and the other is Ekei siding with Nobunaga, forcing Jubei to take his life then and there.
I've decided to serve Nobunaga! If I bring your head, I will become a feudal lord. I warned you. I will do anything to achieve my dream.
Are you serious? If so, I will not hold back.
Okay.
Ekei.
Jubei, I have no wife and no child. All I have is booze and women. But even that fades after time.
Ekei is unfortunately one of those characters who's doomed to fail no matter what happens to him. In one ending, he essentially begs for death, not being able to live with the failure of not saving his wife and child. The other just leads him down the path he took in real life. The real history is dark and sad, as it oftentimes is, but what I do like about the way Onimusha handles its character reimaginings is that the game makes it clear that these characters exist in a world of their own. Who's to say Ekei doesn't go off with the Mori clan and fight back against the Oda armies, and win? Learning about Samanosuke's real counterpart was nightmare fuel, but what Capcom did for him as a character was fantastic. So, all that to say is, I kind of headcanon Ekei walking a better path after the events of this game. I honestly think it's what he deserves.
Farewell!
My favorite of the questing companions is the chief ninja, Kotaro Fuma. Kotaro is loyal to a fault. Early on, Jubei kinda schools this kid, saving him multiple times, leading Fuma to look up to Jubei. They have a brotherly relationship throughout the story.
Sexy Jubei. What are you doing?
Hey you! Come out!
Look at me, Jubei. Ow, ow,
This pesky ninja's main quarrel is, believe it or not, with the mystery woman Oyu. To Jubei, Oyu appears as a helpful, potentially romantic friend that is purely supportive for most of the game. Going down Kotaro's path gets us scenes where the boy questions the woman, cornering her in suspicion, accusing her of being a spy for the Oda clan. As their conflict comes to a head, we learn that Kotaro's past wasn't as bright as the sun over Imasho. Kotaro was abandoned by his mother, while he was taken in by the Fuma clan. Oyu questions what would make a woman do such a thing, while then revealing that she has 3 children of her own. The young ninja looks at Oyu differently after this revelation. The woman he hates is actually a capable warrior, but also a mother who's fighting for the safety of her kids. He obviously storms off out of jealousy. I'm gonna put a pause on Mr. Fuma for now and switch over to Oyu. I've been comparing Samanosuke to Jubei a lot, but as the secondary character, Oyu fills a similar role to Kaide from Game 1. She kind of outclasses the daring Konoichi. Don't get me wrong, I love Kaide, but Oyu is 100 times cooler. Like Kaide, Oyu is the persistent secondary sidekick, so no matter how you play, she will appear at predetermined points in the story. Also, like Kaide, she helps our lead out of more than one bind. No psycho water tank puzzle, but a very fun run through the enemy's base. She also runs into the spirit of Jubei's mom, Takajo, and even Mom is helping out with some secret knowledge about a heavily guarded flute. This'll come into play later. Oh, how nice. The girlfriend and mom meeting went perfectly. You're good to go, Jubei. After Jubei is wounded in a death-defying battle, we switch over to Oyu, where we get to experience how powerful she can be firsthand. On the island, we run into Tokuchiro accosting Oyu, spouting something about the 2 of them having orders from their lord. The imp opens a trap floor under the pair as we finally find out Oyu's truth. Oyu, the western-clad warrior, is actually Oichi, the sister of Nobunaga. What an incredible twist. Oichi in real life was the wife of Azai Nagamasa, the lord of Odani Castle in the current Shiga prefecture. The real-life Odani Castle is now a crumbled ruin because Nobunaga laid waste to it in the 1570s. So Oyu, or Oichi, mother of 3, is currently married to Nagamasa Azai. Well, isn't all of this just unfortunate? I take it back, Jubei, you're not good to go. Run! What makes this worse is the daughters Oyu is mothering aren't even hers biologically. They're from her husband's previous marriage. Changing her name, clipping her hair back, and posing as a Western warrior as to not arouse suspicion, Oyu is conflicted about everything. Learning that her brother plans on leveling her home, she feels her motherly need to protect her children. Meeting Jubei on her quest to Gifu Castle is what inspired her to carry out this mission to its end, whether her brother dies or not. I really love Oyu's character, but like Kotaro, we're gonna put the rest of her story on pause while we examine quite possibly one of the most important narrative inspirations in Samurai's Destiny. As we discussed, Jubei is undeniably a master of the blade, a focused killing machine with one honorable goal in mind: kill Nobunaga. No man or demon can scare this battle-tested hero. Well, all of that kinda goes out the window when this motherfucker shows up.
Gogandantess, the greatest swordsman of all demons.
I know he might seem silly, but don't kid yourself. Gogandantess is a beast unlike any other. Jubei has a legit rival character throughout this story.
Use this! Hurry! Come on!
How sad. Cowards never triumph and heroes never run.
Merely landing hits on him is a cause for celebration. This dude has a parry stronger than Leon Kennedy's, and his attacks have little to no wind-up, making him impossible to predict. The game's setting up Jubei as this stylish killing machine who, in all honesty, is unmatched in skill, only for this theater kid dropout to outclass him in every way, is the best kind of subversion. Dantes' second boss fight is so difficult that you simply have to land about 30 failed hits on his shield parry to progress the story. The game's treating you like a boss fight that he's no damaging. This fight culminates in Jubei getting mortally wounded, leaving Oyu to pick up the story until he recovers. Now that is painful. Dantes is a perfect rival character because while he does mop the floor with you, he's just so theatrical and funny that it's impossible to not love him. Listen, you can hate him all day when he's messing you up, but you have to respect the greats when they bless you with their presence, okay? The sacred flute that Mama Yagyu tells us about is actually Gogandantess' weakness. This flute was crafted by the Oni clan specifically to distract this guy during fights, but no one was ever quick enough to successfully use it. This gave Nobunaga the opportunity to hide this powerful instrument on Oni Island. In our third battle, we get to disable his perfect parries with said flute, and finally face him fairly. Even upon defeat, Jubei shows this man a level of respect worthy of any true samurai.
Dantes.
Magnificent. You've become so strong.
Dantes.
So impressive. Now, please do one thing for me, Jubei. Tell me my name.
Your name is Gogandantess, the greatest swordsman of all the demons.
Gogandantess' battles have lived in my mind since 2002. He is one of the most memorable boss fights in gaming history, and to me, earns his title successfully. Now, Onimusha 2 takes a lot of direct inspiration from the legendary folktale, The Peach Boy Momotaro. So if you don't know, Momotaro is a story about a young baby born from a giant peach found floating downstream. This child is taken in and raised by older adoptive parents. As he grows, he strives to stop a group of evil demons from Onigashima. These demons terrorize the local lands, giving Peach Boy the inspiration to fight back. Gearing up for his adventure, the boy meets 3 animal friends on his path: the monkey, the pheasant, and the dog. To convince these warrior critters to help him on his journey, he gifts them with food. As he meets every new character, he boasts that he's the greatest swordsman in the land, and that nothing can stop him from defeating the demons. And that he does. As a big fan of Onimusha, I was starstruck learning about this legend. Momotaro's consistent, iconic depiction is clearly where Jubei got his iconic look from. The gift-giving side quests Momotaro engages with are exactly how Jubei makes his friends, and the Peach Boy's constant boasting is the core of Gogandantess' identity. His hair is even peach-shaped, look at it. Also, something I noticed only recently is Dantes' peach-shaped boat. It even has a patch of peach coloring on it. Onimusha 1's biggest inspirations for Nobunaga and his Genma forces were the tales of Shuten Doji and a bunch of tragic Shakespeare. I really love how, when the clouds part and the rain clears, the sun genuinely shines down on the continuation of life. No matter how dark this world can get, heroes will always rise to try and save it. Onimusha 2 is in fact a much lighter game in its overall tone. The story takes the adventurous and triumphant route over the horror vibe of the first title. However, the final act of this story does get dark. As you saw with Ekei's tragedy, a few more follow, so let's talk about those. Shortly after laying Dantes to rest, Jubei and Oyu, get ready for this, activate an Oni airship. Tokichiro steals and flies it towards Odani Castle. Of course, not before taking his own leap of faith.
Enjoy your ride!
The Oda army storming the castle gets lit up by Jubei opening fire with the ship's laser cannons. They save the castle, nothing to it. Tokichiro lays one more trap, a hidden bomb blows up the ship's engine, but not before Jubei and Oyu ram it into Gifu Castle. Oyu, struggling to keep her balance, falls backwards into the flaming ship. Oh no! And we're left alone in the darkness of the castle halls, where 10 years ago, Samanosuke Akechi faced down Nobunaga, but couldn't defeat him. Well, my friends, I think it's time to end this, once and for all. The upper levels of this castle house Nobunaga's demonic tower, a fleshy domain straight out of your nightmares. The tone of the story takes a startling turn here. If you complete the optional Phantom Realms all throughout the game, you can get the Fire Sword from Game 1. It's no Bishimon blade, but it's clearly been gaining its own incredible power in Samanosuke's absence. Up here is where the recurring boss, Gingham Fats, shows up one final time, now cybernetically augmented. Halfway through this fight, Oyu and Kotaro show up to help, but it's also here where tragedy strikes again.
Oyu!
Oyu, caught off guard, sees Kotaro, the abandoned child, save a mother in danger.
Kotaro!
Hang on! Oyu, hold on! You can do it! Are you alright, Oyu?
Thank you.
Kotaro, risking it all, is struck down by the demon.
Now you die!
As Jubei annihilates the monster, the dying boy reveals the truth, or what he believes that to be. His mother tried escaping the Fuma clan but was killed trying to get her child to safety, leaving Kotaro tragically in the hands of those who would shape him into the silent assassin he would become. The boy begs Oyu to get back to her children before heartbreakingly calling out to his deceased mother. Like Ekei's tragedy, Kotaro's death definitely scarred me as a kid, him being my favorite character and all. Kotaro's ending, I feel, is the best outcome to the friendship system overall, as it symbolizes what this game is all about, building connections through trauma. In his final moments, he realizes that he's found a family in Jubei and Oyu, but it's too late for Kotaro. This culmination of the gift-giving system and all the fun and heartfelt scenes these characters shared pays off beautifully in such a tragically appropriate way. A young, well-intentioned but naive kid could never survive in a war between demons. Jubei, losing this younger brother figure, lights his soul ablaze, storming off to take on the Demon King once and for all. Oyu tries stopping him, but Jubei tells her to go home. She can't kill her own brother. She can't suffer a similar tragedy to Kotaro. As Oyu struggles to find her feelings, the two share a tender moment.
It's just so perfect, dude. Why did Capcom have to snap so hard on this game?
I hope you find happiness.
Stepping through the fleshy doors of Nobunaga's disturbing hideaway, we see the result of Imasho's gold mining efforts, Nobunaga's ultimate weapon.
I've just transferred my power into this golden evil statue.
A golden evil statue? Oh my god. Say it isn't so.
Nobunaga transforms as we finally get to face him in a real boss fight. Surviving his onslaught of elements, we strike down the Lord, leading to one of the funniest, out-of-nowhere things I've ever seen in my entire life.
You will die.
The room itself begins to absorb Jubei, transporting him to some kind of horror flesh dimension. The massive statue barrels towards Jubei, and with one final effort, our brave hero uses the orbs to become a true Onimusha.
I must believe in the Oni. It will guide me! Faith, charity, respect, honesty, strength!
The final battle of Onimusha 2 sees us legit mega-bustering the Golden Pavilion. None of this is pre-rendered, by the way, and it all looks insane. I don't know what it is about this set piece, but it always freaked me out. Seeing my epic samurai hero become a monster to deal with the ultimate monster. Since you're fighting a temple-sized boss, you actually have to run from it, creating distance for your arm cannon's shots to land. As I dodged this thing's lasers, disembodied faces, and flamethrowers, I felt my mind unraveling. It's an absolutely deranged way of ending a game. Like, holy shit, are you guys seeing this? Destroying all of the monster's limbs, Nobunaga loses his power over the samurai. The mind dimension crumbles away, leaving Jubei running for his life in a dark void. An ominous moon presence looms overhead. Not sure where or when our hero has been placed. Chills down my fucking spine. Like Samanosuke before him, Jubei seems to be lost in time after facing down the King of Demons. I remember out loud saying, "Not again," as a kid when I first saw this ending. I really thought Jubei shared the same fate as Samanosuke, lost to time as Nobunaga continues to reign over the land. Thankfully, after the credits, we get multiple answers. Sometime later, we see Oyu now fully embracing her true identity at Odani Castle. Overlooking the land at the top of her domain, Oichi senses someone in the distance. It's Jubei. These two went through an unbelievable adventure together, but love is something that can't happen between them. History would never allow this. When a samurai reaches adulthood or gains a promotion, they get to change their name. It's a sign of personal growth and progress in one's abilities and spirit. When Oichi decided to face down Nobunaga, she changed her name. She took on a new role, an honorable fight against an evil warlord who happened to be her own blood. Oyu became a samurai that day. In this moment, Jubei acknowledges all that this woman has gone through and calls her by her chosen name.
Oyu.
This symbolic farewell is capped off with an all too familiar laugh. Jubei and Oyu actually achieving their samurai destiny is so incredibly sweet. I love how strong each of the companion characters are. Any of these warriors could have been the main character of this game. It's a lot more compelling having a group of people come together whose lives have all been affected by the Oda clan. I love the first game for its very isolated Resident Evil feel, but Onimusha 2 really stands out because of how varied its story is on repeat playthroughs. If you know the real history of the Sengoku period and the various players on that particular stage, Onimusha 2's ending is a bittersweet one. Learning about all of these historical characters made Jubei and Oyu's late goodbye a lot more somber than it was originally for me. Knowing that Odani Castle will fall no matter what makes these two not knowing all the more depressing. Without spoiling the entire Onimusha timeline just yet, to go back to something I said earlier about all of this being a brighter what-if scenario for these historical figures, this may not be Jubei and Oyu's final goodbye. We might get to see them interact again someday, so stay tuned. After replaying this game the amount of times I did for this video, I had the startling realization that Onimusha 2 might be the best, or worst, Mother's Day game. Think about it. Every single character has some kind of mom trauma. Jubei, Magoichi, and Kotaro all lose theirs. Ekei loses his wife, who is a mom, but Oyu, mother of 3, shows us how powerful motherhood is as a concept. This mom won't stop until she's fully supported her man. I've run out of ways to tell you how much I love this game. For years, I've dreamed about this game getting a port, and after the first game's re-release, I was so stoked for the inevitable 2 port. Well, after 6 years, and let's be honest, 20-something years of PlayStation 2 waiting, Onimusha 2 is back, and I couldn't be happier. You know, it'd be really cool if, as fans, we could all somehow make Onimusha popular again. With this superb port and the next story game just around the corner, we might be able to do just that. Here's hoping. There isn't another game like Onimusha 2. I mean, where else can you uphold your honor, avenge your family name, and throw tons of presents at someone until they like you? What a perfect time to visit or revisit one of the best samurai action games of all time. Oni 2 Remastered is out on May 23rd, so check it out and tell them I sent you. Now, if you'll excuse me. I have a flight to catch. I'm going to Paris. Hopefully, no demons invade while I'm on vacation. Just kidding. See you next time!